This is Catching Exceptions, and today I'm going to introduce you to a patron of product development, Charlie Turano. So thank you for sitting with me.
You're welcome.
Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up on Long Island, a town called Oakdale, New York.
What's your neighborhood like?
Suburban, neighborhood, yards, houses.
Kicking around, playing with the...
Pretty much, yeah.
What ended up getting you into programming?
I've always been interested in computers. I when I was a little kid, I kept asking my dad, how do computers work? And eventually I think he talked to somebody and they said, give him this book. I started learning, digital logic and things like that. It's like, oh, this is how computers work.
What was your first favorite programming language?
Oh, well, my first programming language was BASIC on a TRS-80 Model 1. Thing had 16K of RAM and ran at 2 megahertz. And we stored all our stuff on cassette tapes.
Those are some pretty beastly specs right there.
Oh yeah, 300 baud on a cassette tape. It took a long time to do anything.
So you went to college and everything. You graduated about 89. And what was the technology environment like in 89?
So when I came out, my first job was for a bank, and we worked on Vax systems. They're no longer in business, but it was it's called green screen, but it was actually yellow. Running a VT100 full duplex terminal, so it was all kind of, through a 9600 baud connection back to the computer, and you had lots of terminals.
Those big room-sized, like...
They weren't that big, but they were big enough. They were certainly very large. Your stuff was backed up to mag tape on the big reels, that kind of thing. The system we worked on was fairly sophisticated. It was a really interesting system for processing foreign exchange transactions.
And at that point, what did you think you would be doing 30 years later?
Oh, I had no idea. I knew things would move so fast I couldn't even think about it.
You were one of the major contributors to the TDS project, the Sitecore TDS. What is it like trying to build a product?
Well, it's a lot of fun. It certainly is really an interesting problem. A lot of it is, you don't want to have situations where a new release breaks old things. So you have to be really careful about what features you release, because I don't want to release something that boxes me in 2-3 years from now.
And how long did it actually take to build the prototype?
The prototype came together pretty quickly, maybe less than a month. And it was just, essentially it was a really bad sync window. Then spending a lot of time learning how to put something into Visual Studio. The VSIP stuff is somewhat complicated.
Yeah, I've never touched any of that.
Yeah, it's totally different than web programming. It's the whole web side of things is, a request comes in, you do a bunch of stuff, you send out a response. With this, it's all clicks, and you never know when you're going to get called, and, the UI thread, and what can you do on the UI thread versus not, things like that.
That'll be something else tomorrow.
Yeah, it's interesting.
For anybody else who's going to adventure into trying to build a product or support a product, is there any advice you'd give them to try to help them along their way?
Yeah, you have to kind of think about I'm not trying to solve my problem. So how do I build something that kind of solves that problem for lots of people and similar problems? And thinking that way is really difficult. And like I said, it helps having a great team around you where you could say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And network and branch out and draw things on whiteboards and, really kind of work with everybody around you to try to figure out what the real problem is and then how to best solve it.
So that's all I've got for you, but, We're here at the MVP Summit. I don't know if you want to send a message out or give a message to the symposium.
We have such a great community. It's been so nice, meeting everybody in the community. And Sitecore is such an interesting product. And the thing that I think has served me the best with Sitecore is just kind of digging in, figuring out how all the various little pieces of it work, and then, using that in implementations and product.
All right. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
So that was Catching Exceptions, and you just met Charlie Turano, a developer at Hedgehog Development. Next time you see me, we're going to be getting to know somebody else. Till then, hang loose.
One of Digital Equipment Corporation's most powerful systems is being delivered.